Hi, everyone. I'm Daria Mircea. I'm a business development manager and a senior workplace architect at Brightspaces, a prop tech company developing 3D digital twins that enhance office marketing and leasing for developers. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to the first RE.View Webinar by Brightspaces, a series of online talks where each month we choose some of the hottest topics in real estate and explore the impact of technology in the industry together with our guests. And today I'm talking with Luke Mansfield, UK city lead at Mindspace. And if you're in the world of office real estate, you probably already know about Mindspace. They're a global premium office provider with over 40 locations worldwide and growing. Hi, Luke. Thank you for joining me today for this webinar. I'll start by inviting you to tell me a little bit about yourself and your role at Mindspace.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me. So a little bit about myself. I've been in the industry for about 6 years now, coming up to 2 years in Mindspace. As you mentioned, 40 locations, 20 cities, over 7 different countries. So we are on the scale of the premium global provider. And we...
Sorry, I just think I had a bit of an internet problem. Shall we jump into the topic of remote work? We know this has become more than a trend. It's actually a deep transformation. It was triggered by the pandemic over 3 years ago, but the effects are definitely long lasting. And I'd like to know, what do you think motivates people to go back to a workspace nowadays, whether it's office or co-working or serviced offices? What are they looking for?
So it's really, I mean, even since the pandemic's been lifted in the past year or so, it's evolving month by month as to what people want. And what we're noticing recently is that the office place has to be a destination. It can't just be an office in the middle of nowhere. It has to be somewhere they can meet up with a team. They can have a fully functioning meeting rooms with the latest AV equipment, nice place to go for lunches, gym, swimming pool, all on site. It's really a destination. So when people have made the effort to come back into the office, it's not just to sit there and see your colleagues. It's to do all of the additionals and almost like a mini day vacation. Yes, you get your work done, but also you can have a lovely lavish lunch. You can go out for a drink with the team after. You can go to the gym during your lunch break if that's your preference. And it's having all of that in one place. And that's where you really see some companies will evolve and be super successful if they're able to keep up with the times of what do they want.
So an experience, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. So it really has to be an experience, everyday experience, whether that's an offering from the provider, like lunches, breakfast, and so forth, whether that's ensuring that the meeting rooms have the full AV equipment so they can host calls like this with the likes of their networking and so forth. And if that's the case, then we notice that a lot of our clients are coming back. We're getting new business. We've been super successful through the pandemic and post-pandemic. And one of the key reasons behind that is I believe we are keeping up to the demand of this.
Just a quick note to our viewers, we welcome your questions in the chat and we'll address them later on. If there are any. Look, just on a related note, if you'd like to expand a bit on how do you see the co-working and flex office industry changing as a consequence of what we talked about before on a larger scale? And how do you think it will perform this year specifically, since we're looking at a lot of things happening at the same time right now, which may be challenges or opportunities? It depends just how you tackle them.
Definitely. So, I mean, recently, whenever I say recently, I mean post-pandemic, we're noticing a lot more corporates that are less likely to commit to long-term leases. Obviously, there was a lot of companies of all sizes that got seriously burned throughout the pandemic. They were locked into a contract which they weren't able to exit. Immediately post-pandemic, we noticed that a large percent of our clients only wanted monthly rolling contracts so they could up sticks and leave whenever they needed, which was one of the key changes which we had to adapt to. Now we're seeing a new era where people are getting their confidence in committing to 12, 24 months contracts with break clauses here and there. But one key thing is there's a lot of clients that we've done deals with that are enterprise clients. And when you ask them where they're coming from, you would normally expect them to come from a competitor, but they're saying they're actually moving out from a landlord situation of a lease or a joint venture or anything like that into co-working to have that flexibility and to ensure that the team will come back. Because like I said, it's an experience, it's a destination for them. It's not just an office. And with that as well, you'll notice, for instance, there'll be a company that has, let's just say, 50 employees. They'll take a 30-person office, but still want 50 access passes, so their entire team can access the building. But in the same time, they don't want to be paying for something they're not using or not utilizing. So they're downsizing and then eventually growing with us, which we see in a lot of situations.
Yeah, we see that as well. But just as a strategy, we've been seeing satellite hubs for companies. There's a headquarter and there's smaller offices or co-working desks or spaces for company teams. Do you see a certain type of mix between flex and long-term, or just a wide range of combinations possible?
Yeah, there is. So a lot of them are like, that question comes up in every tour that we do, is where else are you located? Even if it could be like a small offering that they need in London, you never know where else they need a bigger company, whether it falls under an umbrella company and so forth. So for instance, in our London locations, we have several clients that also have now taken space in some of our American portfolios and locations. So we pitch this question every time. There's sometimes they'll say, yes, we're in a long-term lease in, let's say, San Francisco, where we have a site, but once we can exit that in 18 months' time, we'll 100% be taking Mindspace. It synchronizes their contracts. It means that they can, if there's an appendice in the London branch, and we know we can do it in the American locations, then we can almost preempt that they're going to be asking that same signatory. It makes it very streamlined, and lots of clients, if they do have locations where we are, they do tend to favor and go as Mindspace as a portfolio provider opposed to just London where possible. So it's something that we're constantly being asked, locations that we're not currently in as well, that we're considering. Are you going to this location? If so, let us know, because we want an office there. Okay.
And do you see this in the following years heading even more into this direction, proportion-wise, or staying where it is now?
I think it's going to get more so. And that's why it's great working for a global company, is that we do have 20 cities, 7 countries. So we can accommodate a lot of this. And as we grow as Mindspace, and as companies require different locations, we're hoping we can accommodate them. And if there is a very active market where there is a huge demand, then it will be on our radar, and we should be able to take some space there.
You mentioned that the types of users that you have in your centers are wide-ranging, freelancers, small teams, companies growing into your portfolio, or larger companies coming from a typical lease. Do you have any location specificities? Like, would you have more of a certain type in some locations, and in others you'd have bigger companies?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, some of our key clients in the over our UK portfolio are based in West London, like Hammersmith. We have some very big clients. And then versus in Shoreditch, where our biggest office here is a 54 workstation. Whereas if you can draw comparisons with Hammersmith, our biggest office there is over 250 desks. So it really is like Hammersmith, there's space for them to take. In Shoreditch, had been, even throughout the pandemic, it was very, very busy. So we couldn't accommodate the large square foot or desks to these large corporates. So what they actually end up doing in Shoreditch is taking a 30-person office or a 54-person office, and then just getting extra passes, paying for extra passes and whatnot. But what we are definitely noticing, there's two anchor clients in our Hammersmith location both have similar, let's say 250 desks. One utilizes that every day, there'll be 250 people in, or in and around that number. The other one has maybe 30 people in every day, but they still require the same amount of space, same amount of desks. I'm not saying they pay the same, but they're paying similar. And it's like, it's really, it's fascinating how you can have these two similar clients utilizing the space completely different.
Yeah, we're seeing a clear transformation both in the leasing strategies, in the portfolio strategies, and also in the workplace strategies. And I wanted to ask you, just because of this change that we've never encountered before and different things that companies are trying, do you also see more stakeholders involved in the decision-making process when choosing an office space? Because we know real estate teams were usually handling this, but now do they involve more people from different departments and teams with an input on the future workplace, and if and how this will be the right place for them to come to when it comes to in-office work and turning this into a destination, as you said?
Yeah, definitely. So we normally will get the C-suite of the company in question that will come see the space. And that will be obviously the people to sign off on the finances. There'll be people like the team lead from the HR and wellness departments to make sure that it is a location where their team would want to come. It's obviously as C-suite in a company, they're the ones that know how much the pandemic hurt them most. So they are the ones that are asking all the questions. They're the ones wanting to find out if there was a second pandemic or a fifth wave, whatever wave we were on at that point, is there a way they can freeze or pause their membership? Like, it's very, very evident that how this has changed because of the pandemic. Yeah, it's super interesting. So it also means that in a positive light, it means that as the provider, we get to have that face-to-face with people, whether they've come from Israel to see the London location or from San Francisco to see the Shoreditch office. Like, we now get face-to-face with them. We know where they've come from. We can find out where their offices are and actually ask them directly, when does your lease come up in San Francisco? And we can build that relationship already to then utilize that to our strengths of, we know that this lease is coming up in 18 months time. So let's start this conversation in 12 months time and get them in our space. And we know them as a face-to-face opposed to an email.
I'm sure they're also looking around, aside from the desk capacity that they're looking at for their teams, at other types of spaces that you have in your centers. Is there a near perfect ratio, trick question, between the leisure areas and the work areas? Do you experience a related growth between the proportion of social relaxation areas and productivity and creativity in the teams?
I wouldn't say so. Not that I've experienced personally. I believe it's fairly even. So throughout different industries and within those industries, like the different clients, is very much like I would say, like there's no real change or something I could report on to say I've noticed this has changed.
The trends that I've seen, for example, in workplace strategy, are growing the proportion of social and collaboration spaces. I think years ago, before the pandemic, it was already increasing, and now it's really getting to a point where the things are very balanced between support spaces and actual office space or desk space. And this speaks to what people are coming to the office for, what they're looking for in their daily activities when working as a team in the office.
Yeah. So, I mean, rephrasing that then, I would say, so the client's office requirements haven't changed much, besides days with it's a lot more common now for someone to say, I need X size office with internal meeting rooms, or I need an office with 3 phone booths privately. But to counteract that, we always say, yes, if you want a 20-person office with a meeting room, that in theory it means you need a 28-person office, which is going to be a lot more, or could be over your budget or so forth, or how much flexibility is there with your budget. Otherwise, we say, look, in one location, we have 14 meeting rooms, all with AV equipment, and we have 18 phone booths, which you can use at no additional cost. And we do notice in some areas, people do draw comparisons between us and some competition, and they will say, well, I've just been to this competitor, they had 10 meeting rooms, how many do you have? Or they had 20 meeting rooms, you don't have as many as them. So they do draw comparisons. And every time we say to them, like, yes, we have, this is our offering. We have X amount of square foot for communal space. There's additional breakout areas, not just the main one. 14 meeting rooms, 18 phone booths, all of which you have access to. Plus, we're global, so you have the full access to our entire portfolio. It is getting, so back to your question, yes, there is a requirement for additional communal space, which falls under the umbrella of meeting rooms, phone booths and whatnot, all the additional space. And then internally, they are asking a bit more for internal meeting rooms to have their private space. Okay.
It is about choice and flexibility in the end anyway.
Yeah, it really is, yeah.
Let's talk about tech as well. Everything is just so much more digitalized nowadays. We're all hyper connected. What's your take on virtual offices as the ones proposed by the metaverse or other technologies that enable remote work? Do you see them as embedded features of the office of the future if you look at that in a holistic way?
Yeah, so I think that's going to be a key like strategy or software which most companies will be adopting. If not, they're a little bit silly not to. But there's technology these days can help us so much. And I've come from a sales background, so if I was told that every deal under a certain amount of size, we can send them something like a virtual tour where we can identify and guide the clients through the office and highlight certain features which they've told us they're interested in, whether it is the meeting rooms or the phone booths or the communal areas. That would be a software which it'd be a no-brainer as to how productive and how much time that would save us from the sales element. Yeah, I think it is the future. There will always be, for instance, over a certain size, like it would be naive to say we can sell a enterprise client for 5,000 square foot virtually. That's never going to happen. They will need to see the space. But I think there are elements of it where if you do get part C-suite coming into touring and the other C-suite in the wherever they are in the world, they need to see virtual. If you can give them a good product and show them virtually what it looks like and give them all the figures, then I can't see why it's just going to be a huge aid to how well we can sell the space.
So you'd see leveraging this just to enhance current processes and help both the user, the end user, and yourselves in what you're doing day to day.
Exactly. The time, because there are, for instance, one deal that we did in London, it took 6 months. And that was because of some legislations and some rules about the CEO wasn't allowed to leave the country because their country was still locked in and the UK was out and so forth. It took 6 months to do one deal. If we had like the dollhouse and like virtual tour elements where we can actually show them exactly what they're seeing and even project potentially what layout changes they want and say, okay, you said you don't want this wall here, you want X, Y, and Z. Okay, here, this is what it would look like. And they can actually virtually walk through that. I think we could have at least half that time frame because it was a lot of waiting on this one particular deal.
Win-win for everyone.
Yes, exactly, definitely.
We're talking a lot about generative AI these days. It's up to the tools that we're playing with. How do you see it impacting the future of flex offices?
In what element would you say?
Not sure, actually. It's an open question. Like we play with Midjourney, I'm not even going to mention ChatGPT, because that's currently, let's say, for the more for the less artistic part. Like, yeah. For example, on my behalf, I'm looking to see if we'll see an increasing impact in workplace design generation in relation to, let's say, certain workplace strategy parameters and generative design.
I think it'd be a really interesting process to see how a bot essentially could create the perfect floor plan. So pre-build, what would they, if you said, okay, in Monument in London, we've got, let's say we are about to sign on a, we're hypothetically speaking, if we're about to sign on a building and let's say one floor is 20,000 square foot, and you could give them the information, be like, okay, build the perfect office. It'd be fascinating to see what they would pitch versus what data that I and my team collect from like a face-to-face or like speak to brokers and whatnot. We would have an idea how I would create it versus how AI and technology could create it. It would be really interesting to see where we are different from the different data points. But I mean, I would love to see it personally.
Or maybe even the same thing as we discussed before, enhancing the process in certain key points, like finding where to introduce the value of generative AI after you've gathered some requirements, after you've done part of the analysis work, and then seeing how to shorten the time to the final solution, let's say, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, any way to speed up these processes, because they do take, unfortunately, not quick, easy processes. So if AI can help us in those attributes, 100%, I would love to see it.
What about other places and processes where you'd see technology helping? Like, what kinds of challenges would you be looking to solve with PropTech solutions, let's say? We've talked about virtual tours, generative design. Any other ideas?
I think the design one and the virtual tours will be the two key ones. Design ones, I think if we can present a floor plan to some company and said, okay, even if it falls within, they have X amount of budget to redesign their space, I think that would be really interesting to say, okay, we're willing to contribute this CapEx to the design, with like almost like a white label. So it's not going to be the branded, whichever company it is, in this case, Mindspace. So we won't design it in our way. We say, what do you want? And here's the software. You design it in the way you want, and we will approve it for all the obvious regulations that you have to get checked off beforehand. That would be super interesting. And then, like I said, virtual tours, virtual tours is something that obviously got busy during the pandemic when people couldn't get face-to-face. I was always very skeptical to see if it would continue. It is continuing, and as the software gets better, it's a no-brainer to adopt different virtual tour elements, whether that's just your standard walk around or whether it's actually more advanced dollhouse, zoom in, zoom out, what's around the area, doing a walkthrough, highlighting the offices, which you as the salesperson would pitch. So ideally you don't want to show all the occupancy. If they look for, if you got some internal movements, you need to say, okay, this 6-person or that 20-person office is what I'm pitching to the client. And breaking the software down that way is going to be very useful.
Do you see the UK market as a tech adopter in general, as a tech user, if finding the right solution?
Yes, I do. I think the UK market is a leader in most elements of co-working. Like the US market's the biggest one globally across all markets. The German market for Mindspace is our biggest, but I think the UK is doing is leaps and bounds ahead in many ways when it comes to how we operate as a provider, what service we are providing, to not only when it comes to like generating tours and doing leads and dealing with brokers and so forth, but I think the UK is a very, very exciting market, which it's almost like we're not scared to take the risks in the UK, because 9 times out of 10 they pay off, and we've got so much competition in London alone that you need to take the risk to be successful. And yeah, I think the UK is paving the way for co-working.
Wonderful. I have a challenge and opportunity question for you. What are one challenge and one opportunity for the UK and the European market at large right now in 2023?
So I would say recently, since the pandemic, there's been a lot of questions. Most companies will ask about how eco-conscious our spaces are. They want to know exactly where we stand with our emissions, everything like that. Like there's always something we can, like we use green energy, we use everything that we're doing. So we reduce the amount that our HVACs are running, etc. But there's always going to be a challenge. There's always something you can do better for the environment. And I think that's going to be one of the key challenges, is that is every building recycling properly? If not, then why not? Is that getting processed by the building? I think that's going to be a real key area. And we've seen it over the past few years, how much this has been in the media and how it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger of what are we doing to our planet? And I think that's going to be one of the key areas going forward, is how we can design our spaces to be as eco-friendly as possible.
So driving business value as well as ESG responsibility.
Well, we've had clients that they would say that we're happy to pay more for your product because of the beliefs that we have and what we're doing in the ESG world.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Luke. This has been like crazy good conversation. And I'd like to thank our audience as well, and hope to see you on the next episode of RE.View. This one's been a nice first episode, and hope to keep it going the same way. And hope to have you again on the webinar as well.
Definitely. Thank you very much.
Best of luck with all your endeavors.
Likewise.
And have a great day to our audience.